Welcome back to Beyond the Gates. Tonight's story will leave your heart pounding and your mind reeling. Beneath the glittering facade of Fairmont Crest lies a nightmare of greed, betrayal, and uncontrollable rage. When Caroline uncovers Hayley's chilling plot to murder Bill for his life insurance, a chain reaction begins that no one can stop. What was once a home filled with ambition and luxury turns into a battlefield soaked in blood and guilt. Bill's discovery doesn't just break his heart, it shatters his sanity, unleashing a storm of violence that consumes everyone in its path. As glass shatters and thunder roars, love turns to hatred, loyalty to vengeance, and by the time the storm ends, only silence remains. But is it truly over, or has Fairmont Crest just witnessed the birth of something even darker? Caroline had never imagined that betrayal could feel so physical, like a blade slipping between her ribs, cold and deliberate. The moment she uncovered the truth about Hayley's plan, the world around her seemed to still. It wasn't just the revelation that Hayley wanted Bill dead for his insurance money, it was the realization that every smile, every tender word, every shared secret between them had been part of something monstrous. Caroline had thought she understood the boundaries of deceit, but this was something else entirely, premeditated destruction disguised as love. The room spun, but her mind refused to stop turning. She saw it all now, the way Hayley had comforted Bill when he was weak, the way she had insisted on taking over his affairs, the subtle manipulation that had made Caroline question her own instincts. It had all been calculated, every move a step closer to the grave. Bill's world shattered the instant Caroline told him. He didn't cry, didn't yell at first. He just stood there, motionless, the words hanging in the air like poison. Then something inside him cracked. Not loudly, not visibly at first, but deep enough to alter the man he had been. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. Caroline could see the storm gathering in his eyes, the mix of disbelief and rage twisting into something darker. She tried to reach him, but he was already gone, consumed by the need to make sense of the senseless, to destroy whatever had tried to destroy him. His mind ran wild, replaying every moment with Hayley, every touch, every kiss, now warped into evidence of treachery. The house became a war zone that night. Bill's footsteps echoed through the hall like gunshots, his breathing ragged, his hands trembling between fury and despair. Furniture crashed, glass shattered, photographs ripped from the walls, memories turned into wreckage. The storm outside mirrored the one within, lightning flashed across the windows as if the heavens themselves were witnessing judgment. Caroline tried to stop him, her voice hoarse, her tears lost in the chaos. But Bill was no longer the man she had known. He had become something primal, cornered by betrayal and driven by vengeance. When Hayley appeared, everything exploded. Her face froze when she saw Caroline standing there, holding the file of evidence that exposed her crime. The room tightened with tension so thick it felt suffocating. Bill advanced, his shadow looming larger than his body, the veins in his neck pulsing like they might burst. The air between them was electric, dangerous, the space between predator and prey. Hayley stammered, tried to justify, but her words only fueled the fire. The look in Bill's eyes was no longer human. He lunged, and in a blur of motion, chaos erupted again. The crash of metal, the sharp sting of glass, the dull thud of flesh meeting flesh, everything became sound and fury. Hayley fought back, desperation twisting her face as survival instinct took over. Caroline screamed, but her voice vanished under the roar of violence. A lamp fell, spilling fire across the carpet. The light flickered erratically, illuminating a scene that could never be undone, Hayley's hand clutching Bill's wrist, Bill's knuckles stained red, Caroline frozen in the corner as though the walls themselves were caving in. For a moment, time fractured. The world seemed to shrink into fragments, the smell of blood, the taste of fear, the echo of betrayal. And then silence. Thick, endless, suffocating silence. Hayley's body slumped against the wall, her breath shallow, eyes wide open but unseeing. Bill stood over her, shaking, his chest heaving as if trying to remember how to breathe. Caroline moved toward him, but the look he gave her stopped her cold. It wasn't anger anymore, it was emptiness. The kind that follows the realization that nothing, not even revenge, can repair what's been broken. The storm outside began to die down, but inside, destruction lingered. The house smelled of smoke and blood, the remnants of a life torn apart. Caroline knelt beside the fallen lamp, watching its flicker fade into darkness. She wanted to believe that it was over, that justice, however brutal, had been served. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Because guilt doesn't end with survival. It festers, it grows, it devours. In the following days, Fairmont Crest would whisper of tragedy, of a man consumed by rage, a woman undone by greed, and another caught in between, holding a truth too heavy to bear. The insurance papers would vanish, the police would come and go, and rumors would spread like wildfire. Some would say Hayley fell down the stairs, others that Bill snapped under pressure. But the truth was messier, darker, impossible to fit into a single version of events. Caroline couldn't erase the image of Bill's face that night, the transformation from grief to hatred, from love to violence. She wondered if, in some twisted way, Hayley had gotten exactly what she wanted. Destruction, chaos, attention, even in death. Caroline tried to rebuild, but every creak in the house, every shadow at night, reminded her of that moment when everything had gone too far. She lived among ghosts now, not the supernatural kind, but the kind born of choices that can never be undone. Bill was never the same. The man who had once been full of charisma and conviction now drifted through life like a hollow shell. Sometimes Caroline would find him standing in the doorway of Hayley's old room, staring into the dark, whispering words she couldn't hear. Other times, she'd catch him sitting outside in the rain, as if waiting for punishment. And maybe he was, maybe, in his heart, he knew that by the time he struck back, he'd already become everything he hated. The mansion stood in eerie silence, its grandeur a cruel reminder of how quickly power turns to ruin. The bloodstains faded, but the memory did not. Caroline would spend her nights writing letters she never sent, apologies to a woman who didn't deserve them, confessions to a man who could no longer listen. She wondered if there was any redemption left in a story like theirs, or if some sins were meant to echo forever. Sometimes, she thought she saw Hayley's reflection in the glass, not as a ghost, but as guilt staring back. Maybe the universe doesn't punish people with consequences but with memory. Maybe the true price of betrayal is the inability to forget. The rain would fall again, as it always did at Fairmont Crest, washing the world but never cleansing the soul. And in that endless downpour, Caroline and Bill remained, bound by secrets, haunted by what they had done, and trapped in a silence too heavy for forgiveness. Somewhere in that darkness, one question kept whispering through the wind, in a world built on love, lies, and greed, was there ever really an innocent one among them? As dawn crept through the shattered windows of Fairmont Crest, the storm outside gave way to a grim, suffocating stillness. The air smelled of rain and smoke, of violence that could not be washed away. Caroline stood in the wreckage of what used to be a home, her reflection fractured across shards of broken glass. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed, but she couldn't tell if they were real or just echoes in her mind. Everything had changed in one night, love, trust, sanity, all dissolved into the red-stained floorboards beneath her feet. Bill sat slumped in a corner, eyes vacant, as if the man he once was had bled out along with the chaos. Hayley's body lay motionless in the next room, a haunting silhouette against the pale morning light. The empire that once represented wealth and power was now nothing more than a mausoleum of lies. Caroline wanted to believe there was meaning in what had happened, that justice, however cruel, had been served. But deep down, she knew better. There was no justice in betrayal, no redemption in revenge. Bill hadn't killed Hayley to protect himself, he had done it because he couldn't bear to be the fool she had made of him. And Caroline, standing silently as it unfolded, had become something worse, an accomplice to fate. The guilt pressed against her ribs like an unhealed wound, throbbing with every breath. Outside, the police lights painted the sky blue and red, colors that bled together until they became indistinguishable. Reporters would call it a tragedy of passion, a crime of greed, a love triangle gone wrong. But those who knew the truth would understand it wasn't love that destroyed them, it was pride. The same pride that made Hayley believe she could control death, that made Bill believe he could control vengeance, that made Caroline believe she could control the truth. And in the end, none of them controlled anything. As the sun rose higher, the estate grew eerily quiet again. Caroline stepped into the open air, the cold wind biting her skin, and realized that silence was the real punishment. No screams, no fire, no storm, just the hollow aftermath of choices that could never be undone. The insurance money, the deception, the power, none of it mattered now. What remained was the memory of blood and the whisper of a question that would haunt her forever: when love dies and greed survives, who truly deserves to live?